You're stitching along on your embroidery machine and suddenly you notice you've got loops on your satin stitching. How do you fix it? That's really not too difficult to do. If you also have a garment that you've done or some kind of item that has suddenly gotten a snag in the satin stitching, you can fix that as well. It's not difficult to do. I'm going to show you how to do that today. All you need is a needle with your embroidery thread in it, single threaded, just like I have here. You don't double it up. I'm going to use a contrasting thread here just so you can see it a little better. And I use a pin just so I can help mark where my spot is. And in if you can leave your item hooped, it's a little easier. If you have a ready-made item that you've already done and it's got a snag in it, you do not need to put it in a hoop. Right here under the pin, you can see that I've got a snag in my satin stitching. It's a little loop right there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark where that is with my pen. I'm going to go right straight through my fabric through the back on the hoop. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to flip my hoop over. If you're not using a hoop, just flip your material over. The pin right here shows me where my loop is when I get to the back side, so I don't have to guess where it is. I'm going to take my needle, which is threaded with the same color embroidery thread as where the snag is, and I'm going to come back a ways away from where that is, where that loop is, and I'm going to run that needle underneath those stitches, bobbin stitches, and if you can get it in there so it's pretty tight, you can see I'm using my thumbnail to push that through, so it's pretty tight. You don't want it to show, your needle to show on the other side, so just make sure that your needle isn't showing there. Sometimes you get it through a little too far. And I'm going to pull that through just to the end of my thread. And if you leave a little tail there, that's fine. You can come back and snip it off later. I'm near the pin. My thread is right here, and my pin is over here. I'm near it, but not quite there yet. That's intentional. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back a little ways. I came up right here. I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to come through and do another run under those stitches. I'm looping my needle around some of those stitches, and that's going to help lock this thread in. You want to pull it taut, not over tight. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to flip back over here. I can now pull my pin out because I'll know where that snag is. The pin was just to show me where on the back where I needed to run my thread under. I'm going to pull this thread up, or the needle, right next to, on the edge of that satin stitching, right next to where that loop is. I'm going to bring it up, pull it taut, not over tight, and I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to run it underneath that loop. It's right there under my needle, or my needle is under it. I'm going to pull it through, not tight again, and now I'm going to bring it back around this way, and I'm going to come back under that snagged loop of my floss, the same direction, so I'm making a loop around my little snag. And again, you're going to do this in the same color so it's not going to show. Now I have that loop anchored with my thread. Now I'm going to just gently pull so I can see where that satin stitch goes through the fabric, and I'm going to put my needle right back down through that spot, and I'm going to gently, very gently, just kind of tug gently, and you can see my looped thread has disappeared. But basically what I've done is taken that excess thread and pulled it to the back with the thread that's in the needle. Now I'm going to flip it back over. I better secure my pin here or I'm going to end up losing it. I'm going to flip back to the back, and now we need to secure this thread, otherwise everything's going to come undone. So I've got my thread here coming out. I'm going to do basically the same thing I did when I started. I'm going to run this under some threads, Again, if you can get it so it goes pretty tight, that's great. If you have short satin stitches that you're working with, it'll be tight. I'm going to pull it just gently, just taut. Don't yank on it. Don't tug real hard. You don't want to distort anything. Now, my thread comes out right here. I'm going to back stitch a little bit. And I'm going to run it under a little ways again. And I'm running under somewhere between 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch or so, give or take. The longer the better. It's not going to be a problem. And at this point, all I need to do is snip that thread off, snip the tail from the beginning if I left one there, and I'm all done. Quick, easy, and no special tools required.